Imagine trusting your life to a wooden crate, a sputtering motor, and a prayer, as you point its nose towards 22 miles of the coldest, most unforgiving sea in the world. This is how the battle to conquer the English Channel began. Today, that journey is a footnote on a boarding pass, but for the pioneers of flight, the Channel was the ultimate arena, brutal test separating dream from reality, and far too often life from death. It was more than water. It was a psychological war, a gap in the map that mocked human limitation. Why did this narrow strip of water become aviation's greatest obsession, and whose courage or madness finally tamed it? The answer is a saga woven from desperation, genius, and an unyielding will to connect. Our story starts long before engines roared, in an age of quiet contemplation and spectacular leaps of imagination. While the Wright brothers' 1903 flight at Kitty Hawk rightfully claims the title of first powered flight, the intellectual foundation was laid a century earlier in the quiet Yorkshire countryside. There, a baronet named Sir George Cayley was conducting meticulous experiments that would earn him the title of the father of aeronautics. He wasn't merely trying to build a contraption. He was deciphering the universe's hidden rules of flight itself. In his workshop, he identified and defined the forces of lift, drag, and thrust, the holy trinity of aerodynamics. He built and flew the world's first successful human-carrying glider in 1853, a craft piloted by his terrified and likely unpaid coachman who reportedly vowed never to leave solid ground again. This was the crucial, unglamorous groundwork. Cayley proved a heavier-than-air machine could be coaxed into the sky, but crossing the turbulent, gale-swept English Channel, that required not just scientific understanding, but a particular kind of fearless, almost reckless ambition that science alone cannot provide. That raw ambition was personified by a stubborn, nearly bankrupt Frenchman named Louis Blériot. By Lingzhou, Blériot was a man on the edge. He was not young. His fortune was devoured by countless failed and crashed aircraft designs, and his body bore the scars of his profession. But Britain, an island nation defined by that very channel, could not let this aerial invasion go unanswered. The honor of the first British pilot to cross the Channel fell not to a gentleman enthusiast, but to a figure already hardened in the forge of war. John Alcock. Alcock and his brilliant navigator, Arthur Whitten Brown, are famed for their epic non-stop Atlantic crossing. But their mastery was forged and tested over these very waters. Their aircraft were converted war machines, Vickers V.M.Es, heavy with fuel for long-range missions and notoriously prone to icing. Navigation was a brutal physical art of dead reckoning, celestial observation, and sheer guesswork. Brown would often have to strap himself and climb onto the freezing wings in flight to chip ice from the engine gauges with a knife, a testament to the era's brutal hands-on demands. Their successful crossings proved that aviation was maturing, moving beyond the realm of the solo daredevil and into the domain of the engineer, the navigator, and coordinated teamwork. It was becoming a repeatable, reliable system, and this new system, to its credit, had little room for old prejudices. Just a year after Blériot's triumph, a new kind of pioneer claimed the same skies, challenging societal norms as boldly as she challenged the weather. Helene Dutroux, a Belgian former world champion cyclist and stintwoman turned aviator, was fiercely determined to claim her place in history. On a clear day in 1910, she piloted her fragile 50-horsepower plane from Cap Gris to Deal, becoming the first woman to fly solo across the Channel. The press of the era was obsessively focused not just on her skill, but on her gender, framing her flight as a bizarre spectacle. She faced condescending headlines questioning her femininity, her nerves, and even her sanity. She answered them all with 51 minutes of flawless, determined, and technically brilliant flying. Navigating by the coastline below, she wasn't just a passenger in history. She was its pilot, actively wrestling the controls of her own destiny and, in doing so, the destiny of every woman who would look to the sky thereafter. These breathtaking individual feats were the essential spark. The fire they ignited became the golden age of British aviation design, an era where theory met the hard requirements of survival. The practical lessons brutally learned from crossing the Channel: mechanical reliability, extended range, pinpoint navigational precision, and structural integrity were poured into drawing boards in factories from Southampton to Coventry. First among the legends was the sublime Supermarine Spitfire. Its iconic, elliptical winged form was born from the existential need to defend the homeland, to dominantly control the very skies these early pioneers had first timidly entered. It was more than a plane. It was a symbol of national survival. Its Merlin engines roar, the sound of defiance. In the post-war era, the mission changed from direct defense to nuclear deterrence, giving birth to the awe-inspiring, otherworldly Evro Vulcan, this giant delta-winged bomber, looking like a predatory black triangle from a sci-fi novel, was Britain's silent supersonic sentinel during the tense decades of the Cold War. Capable of carrying a devastating nuclear payload across continents without refueling. Its sheer, terrifying presence was a direct descendant of that early desire to project absolute power across any geographic barrier, a strategic concept those first Channel hops had made tangibly possible. Then came the specialists, the tactical scalpel to the Vulcan's strategic hammer, Aircraft like the Blackburn Buccaneer, designed to scream in just meters above the wavetops, evading enemy radar, it was the ultimate hunter of the seas. Its brutal low-level prowess was the complete antithesis of Blériot's vulnerable high-altitude crossing. It represented the full military maturation of mastering that most dangerous airspace between the sea and the sky, turning a zone of peril into a corridor of attack. But for every story of engineering triumph and human courage, there is a sobering, vital lesson written in tragedy. The relentless pursuit of progress in aviation has always been shadowed by profound loss, each disaster a harsh teacher. One of the most consequential lessons came not from a mid-air catastrophe, but from a flawed routine landing attempt. In 1970, a British airliner crashed near an airport, leading to devastating loss of life. The meticulous investigation revealed not a single error, but a tragic, cascading chain of minor technical misunderstandings, procedural gaps, and human factors under pressure. This accident and others like it led to nothing less than a revolution in philosophy. The implementation of crew resource management (CRM), which emphasized teamwork and communication over hierarchy along with sweeping changes in cockpit design, standardized phraseology, and simulator-based emergency training. Every safety regulation we take for granted today is, in truth, a monument to a past failure, a hard-earned scar on the body of knowledge that keeps us safe. So, what began as a dangerous media-driven stunt for prize money evolved, through sheer force of will and incremental learning, into the global nervous system of our modern world. That fragile, wooden Blériot, she has a direct and unbroken lineage to the composite-winged Airbus you might board tomorrow. The courage of those early pilots, shivering in their open cockpits, is woven into the fabric of every pre-flight checklist, every air traffic control instruction, and every redundant safety system. Their legacy is more than museums filled with steel and aluminum. It's the very idea that barriers are meant to be flown over. That connection is worth any risk. They looked at a map divided by a formidable gray sea and instinctively drew a new route in the empty sky, a path followed by millions every day. If these stories of ingenuity, defiance, and sheer nerve have captivated you, please give this video a like. It truly helps Winds of Thought bring more of these hidden histories to light. Now, we turn it over to you. Which aviation pioneer's story, the scientist Cayley, the desperate Blériot, the determined Dutroux, or the wartime pros like Alcock resonates most deeply with you, and why? Let's discuss in the comments below.